At that time, the Lord appointed 72 others, whom he sent ahead of him in pairs, to every town and place he intended to visit. He said to them, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. Go on your way. Behold, I am sending you like lambs among wolves. Carry no money bag, no sack, no sandals, and greet no one along the way. Into whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace to this household.' If a peaceable person lives there, your peace will rest on him. But if not, it will return to you. Stay in the same house and eat and drink whatever is offered to you, for the laborer deserves his payment. Do not move about from one house to another. Whatever town you enter and they welcome you, eat what is set before you. Cure the sick, and in it say to them, 'The kingdom of God is at hand for you.'" Hello and welcome to Closer Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host. I'm glad that you can join us today. The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. You can take that statement, and there's so many applications. Our Lord was saying, look, there are a lot of people out there. They're hungry. They're looking for something. And we need people to feed them. We need people to bring them. And in his time, there weren't enough people proclaiming the gospel. Today, we find ourselves in situations that, wow, we're having to close parishes. Isn't that horrible? How dare the diocese do this? My great-grandfather worked on his hands and knees to build that church. Those are very tough situations. They're very tough situations for everyone involved. What happens is, and you know this as well as I, at the turn of the 20th century, we were such an immigrant country. So we had people from all over the world coming in looking for a new life. They came from Poland and Russia and Italy and France and Germany. Well, when they came, a lot of these people were Catholic. And when they came, they wanted their own churches. They wanted their churches because they wanted their priests to speak German, Polish, Russian, French, English, whatever. So consequently, and they wanted their churches to look like the old world, the days when it really was. Churches were built to glorify God. And so they took all their old world craftsmanship and they built these magnificent churches right in the downtown parts of cities. You could have situations where within a 10-minute walk, you could go to 5 different churches, each one of them representing a different nationality. And then they made their way in the New World. They got prosperous. They didn't want to live in those cold water flats anymore. They didn't want to live in those downtown tenements. They got their own plumbing business. They become doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, butchers, whatever they became. They've been successful. And now they want to move out to the suburbs. And so they do. And now all those areas, they're no longer occupied by immigrants who come with a Catholic background. And now we have these huge, beautiful cathedral-like churches. And maybe on Sunday you'll get 100 people in there. And maybe every one of those people will give you $5. You can't do it. It can't survive. And now we're finding ourselves, we're having to close churches. And then we got a new priest in our parish. I don't know what country he's from, but I can't understand a word he says. And the young people are leaving in droves because all these foreign priests, how come we can't get an American-speaking priest? That's a great question. Let's try and answer it together. How come we don't have native vocations? How come our young men and women are not willing or open to or searching for the questions, what is it that God is asking of me in my life? Well, first of all, let's look at a point in time in our history. The immigrants who came over here, those people lived by the sweat of their brow. They worked from can to can. Sacrifice was part of their life. And they wanted their children to have a better life. They didn't want their children to work in coal mines. They didn't want their children to work on railroads. They didn't want their children to work in sewer systems. They wanted to have an education. And so they provided a better life. And those children were recipients of a lot of wonderful things. Hard work, a lot of love, a lot of sacrifice. But a lot of them didn't understand what their parents had been through. And so consequently, they got used to the good life, but they never understood the sacrifice. And they wanted the good life, but they didn't want the sacrifice. And therefore, we find ourselves, and I'm part of that baby boomer generation, we find ourselves with children who, what do you mean we can't go to McDonald's today? What do you mean I can't have a television in my room? What do you mean I can't have my own iPhone? What do you mean we don't have the internet and Wi-Fi available in every house? We've gone from the sweat of our brow to becoming so accustomed to luxuries that anyone who says, you need to sacrifice here. What? Are you crazy? Why should I sacrifice? And and look at all the Madison Avenue marketing stuff. The great strategies, have it your way. Whatever you want, we're going to cater to you. And there are a lot of people who look at this life as entitlement. I ought to be catered to. I ought to be taken care of. And I have a right to have a cell phone. I have a right to have cable television. I have a right to have transportation. I don't have to do anything to do it. I just have a right to it. And there's a real disconnect here. There's a disconnect in our society. When you have children who've grown up with the idea that all they have to do is ask for it. Beg Mom and Dad, please, 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 I really need it, oh please. We tried the same routine. We got it for birthdays, maybe we got it for Christmas, or we got it ourselves. Why? Because my dad was sacrificing to go to work, to put food on the table, to keep us in Catholic schools. There wasn't that extra $5 in those days for the pair of sneakers that I thought I needed to have because all the other kids had it. There wasn't that there. And so consequently, we were taught if you want something, you work for it. You get it. You do without until you work, until you can afford it. Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to a new generation, a generation of entitlement. I deserve this. I really deserve this. And you owe this to me. You're my parents. And all the other kids have it. You owe it to me. And now let's ask the question. The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. Well, how come? I was vocation director. I was vocation director for 12 years. Walk into a Catholic high school, 11th graders, basically a room full of glands and tennis shoes, okay? I mean, here they are. They know so much more than you do. And you say, you know what? I'd like to invite you to a life of sacrifice. I'd like to invite you to a life where you put the needs of other people before yourself. I'd like to invite you to a life where you have more education than the normal person, and your salary never meets the federal poverty standard, and you don't have sex for the rest of your life. Who wants to join? This man's crazy. This man's crazy. So, you know, when we start talking about this question, we start talking about this question of why don't we have priests and nuns like we did when I was a kid? That's a question we, in the Catholic world, in the Catholic parishes, and in the Catholic society, we have to answer. And it's not just because you don't have priests and nuns out on the playground playing with the kids and kicking the ball. There's a much deeper question. Years ago, well, I say years ago, 10 years ago, when I was vocation director, the local newspaper wanted to do a story about vocations. And the first statement question was, well, Father, it doesn't seem like a lot of people want to become priests anymore. And I said, you know, you're right. And it also doesn't seem like a lot of people want to stay married anymore. Because more people feel like they have a right to convenience and not their convictions. They think they deserve it, but they don't think they have to pay a price for it. And that challenge that we have, you know, I had a friend growing up, his dad was a doctor, and they had 7 kids. And, you know, you always thought, well, his dad's a doctor, you know, they can get new cars, they can do this, they can do that. And I've always admired the man, and I told him, because later on in life as adults we became friends, he never allowed his kids to have stuff. He made them work for it. They had to cut grass in the summer, they had to buy groceries, they had to work their way through college, working at whatever stores they could be. And of those kids, 1 became a lawyer, 4 became doctors, 1 got his master, and the other one, the woman got a college degree and was married. And the reason why they did that is because it wasn't given to them. They were told, if you want to make your way in life, I'll help you make your way. I will not make it for you. And so consequently, that whole ability to do without. Yeah, I'd much rather be out partying, but I got to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. When you learn that when you're 16, 17 years old, you realize there's a price you pay for the good things in life and for the things that you want. And so when we're talking about a vocation crisis, we certainly have one, but at the root of that crisis is not the fact that the gospel's not being preached, or not the fact that your priest is from another country and you have a hard time understanding it. The root of that problem is bound up in the fact that we've created a culture of entitlement where sacrifice is seen as bad, overindulgence is seen as being blessed, and not having to pay the price is what we think we're entitled to. Hi, I'm Father Jeff Bayou from Closer Walk Catholic Communications. Thank you for being here today, and a special thanks for the support that you give us. First of all, your prayerful support we so desperately need, and also your financial support. We are donor-driven, and that is what keeps us on the air today. As you well know, the truth is in great demand and in very short supply, and mainstream media is not going to bring you the truth of the Gospels of our Lord Jesus Christ, because that's not socially acceptable and it's not politically correct. Certainly we all realize that when this life journey's over, we don't stand before the Supreme Court, we stand before the throne of God. Therefore, with great clarity and great charity, to pronounce the truth of the gospel is important. Your prayers, your financial support enables us to do that. So we thank you, and may God bring you closer in your walk with the Lord each day. God bless you. He said to them, the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. Go on your way. Behold, I am sending you like lambs among wolves. Carry no money bag, no sack, no sandals, and greet no one along the way. Into whatever house you enter, first say, peace to this house. Hello and welcome back to Closer Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host, and we're glad you returned. I'm sending you out like lambs among wolves. Carry no money bag, no purse, no extra tunic, no extra sandals. Go for it, man. Do the best you can. Years ago, it's very interesting. When you talk about the idea of a religious vocation, whether it's to the priesthood or religious life, a brother, a sister, or a deacon. You know, one of the things, people say, oh, yeah, I thought about being a priest, but I like women too much. Well, thank God. You're normal, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Well, I thought about being a nun, but I had a boyfriend. Well, guess what? You're normal. The understanding is this, is that, when people look at that and they say, oh, I can never do that. I'm not capable. I'm not holy enough. I'm not good enough. I've been a priest 37 years and I can still say that. I'm not holy enough. I'm not good enough. And sometimes I think, Lord, if you're almighty and all-knowing, you certainly had better taste than this. You could have found someone so much smarter. God doesn't call the most qualified, but God does qualify everybody he calls. And so when we talk about this need, a need for more laborers in the harvest, how come we don't have enough priests and we're closing parishes, we're doing this, we're doing that, how come we don't have it? Well, because, think about this. Those of you who are parents and raising children, as your children come of age and they start asking questions and they think, well, maybe this, well, maybe that, well, maybe the other thing. How many of you parents have ever pulled your child aside and said, darling, what do you think God wants of you? Mom, Dad, I'm thinking about getting married. Baby, is this a person God wants you to spend the rest of your life with? Have you ever said that? If people have said, well, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, well, darling, do that every night. Ask God. Help God to find your will for your life. I'm just talking about small things. I'm not talking about turning your den into a shrine. I'm talking about small things on a daily basis that we can do to keep the question of God and our future one and the same in the lives of the children that we have been given by God for one reason, to make sure one day they see the face of God and enjoy his company for all eternity. It's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that matters. Quick little story. And I was in a parish and this family had they had 10 children. She was pregnant with her 11 and she miscarried. Then she's pregnant for the 12th. She comes in to see me one day and she said, Father, she said, she said, I miss my baby. I never got to hold my baby. And she said, the other day I was in my room all by myself crying. And I'm thinking, you got 10 kids, how do you get in a room by yourself? But anyway, I was in my room all by myself crying. And my husband walked in and said, baby, what's wrong? He said, I just missed the baby. And her husband said to her, darling, we got one in heaven already. We need to get the other 10 there. And that's somebody who understands. That's someone who understands the role of parenting and why God gives us these children. And we come up with these, well, as long as my child is happy. What the hell does that mean? As long as my child is happy. I got people who stoned out of their gourd and they're happy. They're going to sober up tomorrow morning, but right now they're happy. They're living with this one, that one, the other one, and changing their preference every other month, and they're happy for the moment. It doesn't matter whether or not we're happy. It matters whether or not we're pleasing in the sight of God. And if we're pleasing in the sight of God, then most assuredly we will have happiness, a happiness that lasts forever. So when it comes to our own children, I mean, think about it. How many kids get married and the guy doesn't know how to cut grass or fix a lawnmower? Doesn't know how to change the oil in his car, and the girl doesn't know how to boil water in the kitchen. Oh, I know that's sexist roles, and get over it, okay? But they don't know how to be married. They don't know how to take care of a household. They don't know how to cook a meal. The only part of their house that they can sell unused is the kitchen. And the thing is that we haven't prepared them for life, let alone prepared them for everlasting life. And that's the question, that when we talk about the vocation crisis and ask, what are you priests going to do about it? And what are you bishop going to do about it? Nothing. I don't have any children. You, the parents, are the future of the church. These children we're bringing up are the future of the church. If we bring them to church only because it's a requirement for Catholic school, a school of religion, and then summertime comes and they're off from church for the summer because mom and dad are at ballparks and at the river fishing, what are we teaching our kids? What are we teaching? The example that we give has got to be one, first of all, that anything in life worth having, there's a price that comes with it. There's a price that comes with it. None of us got a college degree because we partied every night. None of us started a business and it became successful because we fished and played golf whenever we wanted or went shopping whenever we wanted. We had to make sacrifice. And so it is in life. And that challenge of, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be faithful. I love Mother Teresa's line, I was never called to be successful, only faithful. And after 37 years of priesthood, I can look at all my brother priests. We all have very different gifts and very different talents. And some speak very well, and some are wonderful in hospitals, and some are wonderful with the aged, and some are wonderful with the kids, and some are wonderful with education. We all have different gifts. There's not going to be one who's going to be the complete package. But all of us have something to give to God. It's not our success that we gave, but it's our fidelity. Remaining faithful to the commitment we made to the Lord and to His church, and living it every day. And some of the most powerful people, the saints in history, were not the great orators. They were the people who very simply and daily went about doing ordinary things with an extraordinary love and commitment. And that's where we find holiness. But if we're going to deal with the future of the church, we're going to have people who, first of all, realize that the things in life that we want don't come easy, don't come free. It's no coincidence that our salvation came through suffering and death on a cross. There was a price that He paid for our salvation. There's a price that we pay in order to remain faithful. And the challenge of priesthood and religious life, the challenges are great. The rewards are incredible. The rewards are just absolutely incredible. And it's not because, well, I can never get up and give a sermon. Well, I can never do this. I can never do that. You know what? There are a lot of things I could never do. I said, okay, God, I'm going in, cover me. And it does. You pray your way through it. You pray your way through all your faults and your failings. You pray your way through your doubts and your uncertainties. You pray your way through situations that you have no idea what to do or what to say. You give it up to the grace of God, and God enables us to do what we didn't think are humanly possible. And so, people out there, and especially parents, and the biggest problem we have with vocations is when people would come forward, well, why don't you try med school first? Well, why don't you try law school first? Why don't you? Really? Really? They don't see priesthood or religious life as a real vocation, as a real calling from God? Mom, Dad, I'm thinking about studying history. History, how much history can you eat? Go to computers, that's where the money is. We tell our children to chase the false gods. Doesn't matter whether or not you're happy, whether or not you got a good retirement, a good 401k. That's what matters. Money's what we're chasing here, okay? Make no mistake about it. Being pleasing in the sight of God. Parents, you're the ones who do it. Don't blame it on my sermon. Don't blame it on the fact that we don't have enough nuns in the school. Blame it on the value system that we don't mean to. We don't mean to, but just kind of inadvertently, we give our children the wrong message. I was vocation director, and we had a high school in a small country parish, and they had 6 kids. 6, okay. That many 6, all right? They had 6 kids who wanted to go on a vocation retreat. Not one of their parents would allow it. I want grandchildren. Not one of their parents would allow it. We have a generation. I want to have my boy, I want to have my girl, I want to have my tubal ligation or my vasectomy. We only want 2 kids. The one who's going to carry the family name and give me grandchildren. I want grandchildren. Don't talk to me about being no priest. All these things are real. Parents, we have a vocation crisis, but we also have a commitment crisis. The Lord is calling us. You got to ask yourself the question: if God is the author of vocations, and most certainly He is, I'm living proof of that. Okay, but if God is the author of vocations, and if at this point in our history we find that there are not enough vocations, the question is, has God quit calling, or have we just quit answering? I think we know the answer. It's our duty and it's our responsibility to create an environment in which kids can hear, answer, and find their joy in God's call. Thanks for being with us. May each day bring you closer in your walk with the Lord. God bless you.